What's going on, everybody? Welcome in. It's the Wager Alarm live stream. I'm your host, Howard Bender. With me here, of course, Craig Mish. It is time, Craig. It is Friday. We've been doing these live streams now. We brought them back finally, and here we are looking for. I'm your host, Howard Bender. With me here, of course, I got sound blasting all over the place. Craig, it is Friday. I don't know where it's going? There it goes. Holy cow! Wow, that was crazy. Nevertheless, rocky start, going to be a smooth ride and a smooth finish here.
Are you ready to do this for the next 21 weeks, Howard?
You know what? I actually am ready to do this for the next 21 weeks. We've been talking about this for a while. We're both I think we both enjoy this more than anything else, is really what it comes down to.
I do. I don't get to talk to you a lot like I used to, so this is our chance always to chat. And our second year doing the Super Contest picks. For those of you who want to track our picks all season long, you could just go over to Fantasy Football Super Contest and check out our entry, as Howard's in there under Wager Alarm. And then this year we decided to jump into the Golden Nugget Football Contest in Las Vegas. So we're in that one as well. We've shelled out a lot of money this year to be in these. So we felt that last year was very important to have stake in the game. This year it's very important to have stake in the game. There are so many people in the industry that have now moved themselves over to becoming gambling experts. And honestly, Howard, if you don't have your money where your mouth is in this thing, I don't really put 2 cents into that. But Howard and I have both dropped 4 figures in both of these contests. We have put our own money into this thing. And so we have a lot invested in that. And I think that's very important for those of you who watch these live streams to know that this isn't daddy's money. Howard and I, our own bankroll, have put this together. And so the Super Contest is 5 NFL picks. The Golden Nugget Contest is actually 7 picks however you want them. I just figured that out. I thought that you had to have college and pro, but 7 picks however you want them. So we have college and pro in the Golden Nugget one. We have 5 in the Super Contest. The lines are a little bit different in both of them. So we're going to have to make sure that we give you our accurate lines and picks each week. And I am ready to roll here for this Friday night.
Yes, I am too. I thought you were going somewhere else with
That's it. That's all I got.
I got nothing else here, people. That's it. It's done. It's over. No, listen. Our deadline is already passed for the Golden Nugget Contest, and yes, like Craig said, 5 picks. We're good. We're good. Dude, we went 7-0. I looked into the future, and there we were, right on top.
You did email the proxy earlier today, correct?
I did. I took care of everything. I told you. I asked for visual confirmation. Now this is one thing so that you guys know also how Craig and I are putting our money where our mouths are, because at wageralarm.com every Saturday, as soon as we get the confirmation, the tickets, visually sent to us, so it comes to me, gets texted to me, I post it right there on the website so that you can see it. You can track all of last year's Super Contest. If you like, I posted all of our tickets there each day, so you can see exactly how we went. Now, we went 5 college, we went 2 pro this time. Yep. And listen, I think it's important to kind of just lay that out before we get to the actual picks here, because you and I were talking about our picks for the Super Contest and week 1 of the NFL. Push it aside about the Packers and the Bears and how crappy that game was on Thursday night. It was terrible. It was absolutely atrocious. No preseason. Nobody played in any of the preseason games. Week 3 wasn't even remotely a dress rehearsal. So I actually liked the idea that we went with 2 that we were super confident in for the pros, and then went the rest of the way with the college, because we are kind of rolling along with that. So keep that in mind, guys. We were going through our 5 picks for the Super Contest, and I mean, there are some that we agreed on. There were some that we didn't agree on. I conceded. Craig conceded. So, I mean, it's a lot to deal with there. So I like the fact that we did the college focus, and let's tell everybody what our Golden Nugget picks are, because you guys are probably going to want to look at these lines and see where they are right now. And if you feel like betting them, Craig and I are in it with you there. Number 1 pick here, Craig. First of all, let's talk about Army. Going up against Michigan. Now, here's the deal. I love this pick. because of what we've talked about in the past. I mean, it's a 25-point spread here, and while Michigan is a great team in comparison to Army, Army has A, been playing really well, and B, we talk about the fact that teams do not like to run up the score on the military academies, Harbaugh being one of those guys who I could definitely see jumping out to a lead and immediately taking his foot off the gas.
Yeah, and by the way, just for confirmation, what is the line that you have on that one? The final line on Army? Just out of curiosity.
Army's getting 22.5.
22.5. Okay, just wanted to make sure I had that right. You scared me there for a minute. If it was 25, I needed to go bet a lot more on Army. So 22.5. So let's talk about this. Army, as those of you who have watched the live stream last year, was our really good friend. We had them a lot. They covered for us at least 2 or 3 times last year. And outside of Clemson, they have one of the longest winning streaks in all of college football. They dominated their bowl game. And then here is this is a really interesting point that I want to bring up. Last week, Army looked awful against Rice. They did not look good. And I think that drove a lot of people maybe even toward the Michigan side this week. So as we were getting ready for this live stream, I thought it would be really important for me to take a look at what Rice is doing, because they're playing tonight against Wake Forest. And if they were going to lose 48-0, I still would have taken Army in this game. But they are going toe-to-toe right now with Wake Forest. Wake has a 21-14 lead in the second quarter. So I feel much better about that. Maybe Rice is a little bit better than what some people thought. This is a game where I think Army is going to grind this thing out. They've played very close with a lot of good teams in college football in the past. I don't think Army is going to win the game. But we're getting more than 3 touchdowns, and the total is 47. So provided that Army's defense even plays halfway good against Michigan, a team that has had a propensity to not cover the spread at times, I think that there is a chance that this game goes right down to the fourth quarter. Maybe Army is down 2 touchdowns. Maybe it even becomes 3 touchdowns, but Howard hit it on the head, and people don't talk about it enough. The military academies, how many of these games in college and pro football come down to the last possession in terms of covering or not covering? How many? Half of them? All of them? Feels like every game almost does. Of course there's going to be flukes. Teams are going to win 52-0. But when Michigan has the ball and they're up 21 with 3 minutes to go, they're going to shut it down. They're not going to rub it in. And this happened. It happened with Notre Dame last year. It could happen again with Michigan this year. And I do think that Army will be competitive in this game. Will they win the game outright? That seems like a tall order. But I do think they keep it close. They're riding such an epic winning streak at this point. That was the first pick on the board for me. It just kind of stuck out there that I do think Army has a good chance to cover in this game.
Absolutely. And one of my dogs absolutely loves Army. She is 100% in. As you can hear, she is howling at that one. Big salute out there. Second game we looked at here. This was an interesting one. I questioned you originally on it. Missouri giving up 14 points here to West Virginia.
Yeah.
Now, listen, I don't love West Virginia by any stretch of the imagination, but Missouri lost to Wyoming last week, and they didn't look good losing to Wyoming there.
No, they didn't.
So to lay 2 touchdowns here made me a little nervous, but tell me why we're going with it.
There's 2 teams that we're going to take that are favorites here that gave up late leads and gave up late covers. And the reason why we're going to do it is because there are 2 teams that are talented, but from a conditioning point of view, I think they weren't prepared and fell a little bit short, and that goes on the coaching staff. Missouri is one of those teams. They're a better team than Wyoming is. It's just that they got off to a 14-0 lead, and they fell completely flat. Their receivers were dropping the ball all over the place in the second half of that game. Kelly Bryant Howard, of course, the quarterback from Clemson, who is now the quarterback at Missouri, threw for over 400 yards, but really faded in the second half. Another team that we're going to talk about in a little bit did also, and they talked about it, and I can mention it now, Florida State, all their players were dehydrated. I think that's a big factor early on in the season, and something that a coach will learn from and a training staff will learn from after seeing it, because there's no question that on the field, Missouri, SEC, more talented team than Wyoming, no doubt about it. I think that they are much more talented than West Virginia, a team that lost their head coach in the offseason, that is in a rebuild, no doubt about it. West Virginia is not going to win more than 4 or 5 games this season. I think Missouri bounces back in a big way. I think they win by 21 or more. They're at home. I like them a lot. I'm taking Missouri this week minus the 14 points.
Okay. You just mentioned Florida State, and we're taking them actually as well in this one. We're laying 21 here, so this is the other big one that we're laying.
And the same reason, same exact reason. I could just do a retweet on the last one. They're playing a really bad team this week. FSU in the first half looked like a completely rejuvenated program. They looked great offensively. In the second half, all their players had to come out. They were all tired. They were all cramping up. I don't think that happens this week. Again, I think they learned their lesson from last week. Remember, they had to move that game from Jacksonville back at home. Boise State was a lot more prepared for them in the second half than FSU was. There's no hurricane factor involved in this one, and I think FSU absolutely rolls over this one. I'm not going to lay a 40 or a 50 in a college football game, but I'll lay 21 with FSU this week.
Okay, another one that we're laying here also, Florida International, minus 7.5, Western Kentucky. Both teams lost last week. You see Florida International on the rebound. I mean, listen, you live down there in Florida. You know these teams better than anyone. When you tell me Florida State or FIU, I concede to you on those accounts here. Tell me about FIU in this one.
And our record historically has been really good with a lot of the Florida schools last year, going back to a lot of our live streams, a very high percentage on hitting those because I do follow them a lot closer. And we've talked about this on live streams before and wagering. If you feel like you have a strength or you feel like you know a conference, why go so far off the grid with teams that you have no idea about? Stick to what you know. Look, Western Kentucky a couple of years ago was an up-and-coming team. They had Jeff Brom as their head coach. They had Mike White as their quarterback. He's now with the Dallas Cowboys. They've undergone so many coaching changes. And so what Western Kentucky decided to do this year, Howard, was get smart, which is this. They invited Central Arkansas to come play them, figuring, okay, we're going to have a nice cupcake for the opening game. They gave Western Kentucky gave Central Arkansas last week $325,000 to come play them and lose. Central Arkansas went to Western Kentucky. That tells you how bad Western Kentucky is. Now, a lot of bad luck last week for FIU. They did not play well also, but they were so bad on third down. They got put in some horrible positions because they couldn't run the ball. Their best player didn't play. Devontae Price sat out. He is going to play this week. I think that this is a blowout. Golden Panthers win by at least 14 points against Western Kentucky. I think they show up at home. And by the way, Western Kentucky is now going to have to adjust to that heat playing here in South Florida, in Miami. So I think that no question this thing gets broken open in the second half, and look for Devontae Price to have a really big game. When you don't run on first down and second down, Howard, and you're in third and long in college, you can't convert those. I think FIU gets it done this
consistently. No. Okay. I like it. And then the fifth game that we're looking at here, how about UCLA?
This is honestly the fifth of the five. This is my least favorite. I mean, we got to pick seven. And so, look, it is hard to get back behind Chip Kelly and UCLA after
so bad last week.
Yeah, they looked really bad at Cincinnati. But San Diego State could be one of the worst teams in college football. And for me, this is the kind of thing, Howard, that UCLA, they bring Chip Kelly in. He has the season that he had last year. They open up in the first game against Cincinnati. This is it, man. Like, there is a ton of pressure on UCLA to win, and I do think that they show up. It's like, who is the more desperate team? That doesn't always work in the NFL, but it does work in college football. So I don't see San Diego State scoring 17 points. Their quarterback for UCLA, Dorian Robinson, he was 8 for 26 passing against Cincinnati. I think he gets better. My only concern with UCLA, and by the way, their receiver's going to play this week. Their best receiver, he was out last week, is Joshua Kelly, their running back, who just didn't look good at all against Cincinnati. There's some rumors that maybe he is hurt. Maybe he's hurt more seriously than people think. And in that Chip Kelly offense, go back to Oregon, go back to even the San Francisco 49ers. This guy, as much as he throws, it is all about that quarterback dropping back, waiting, and then handing it off to the running back, and that guy runs. And they need Josh Kelly to do that. So very rare for me to have favorites in college, but I don't like a lot of the matchups this week in college. Really, the best matchup on the board is Texas against LSU. It's rare in week 2 of a college football season that we have almost no premier matchups, but that's the way we're at. We only have two schools in the top 25 playing against each other. I don't know how that kind of happened this year for college. I'm not really sure. So no really juicy matchups for me, and so we'll take UCLA as the 5th college pick this week. So Florida State, UCLA, FIU, Missouri, and Army will be our 5 college picks in the Golden Nugget contest this week.
Absolutely. And then we're going to pair those up with our 2 pro picks. And these are picks that we're actually doing in both here in the Golden Nugget, and we're using them in the Super Contest so we can transition to each one of those. Let's start it off here. Baltimore Ravens, 6.5-point favorites over the Dolphins. To me, yeah, what scares me is how big of a no-brainer this is.
I know, it's so easy, right?
You talk about the Heat down in Miami, and is that going to affect the Ravens here?
That's the only thing. That's the only thing.
But yeah, listen, Miami's tanking already. They're getting rid of they got rid of Laramie Tunsil, their number 1 offensive lineman there. They got rid of Kenny Stills, who's arguably their best receiver since they had lost Jarvis Landry. Miami's just a disgusting hot mess. The Ravens, one of the premier defenses as is. I love Lamar Jackson in this one. I love Mark Ingram running all over these guys. And to me, this looks like a very easy one for the Ravens. So 6.5. I would have been nervous had it been 7.5. Then I would have been nervous.
It's going to go there.
Crazy.
It's going to get there. Yeah, by Sunday it'll get there. Yeah, a couple of things that are important. And again, I don't have all of the notes and I don't have all the tickets from all 16 or 17 weeks that we did this last year. I'm gonna guess that we didn't take road favorites of 7 points or more in any week. I don't think we ever did it. So this is coming as close as we will ever do it. By the way, what I found was interesting was this morning when I was doing my other show was the lines for week 2 came out in the NFL. And I just took a quick look at them because I wanted to see what the perception already was going into week 2. I found it like an interesting exercise. And one thing that stood out to me was that, Howard, that New England next week is 10-point favorites at Miami. And so that is like, that's a huge number for an interdivision. I don't care what team it is, a road favorite of that much, which tells you there's a chance that Miami gets smacked. By the way, the Ravens have played the Dolphins 8 times in the last 10 years, and they've covered all 8 times. So this matchup has not gone well for the Dolphins. Of course, some of that was Adam Gase and other coaches as well. But look, there could be a lesson involved here one way or the other. Lesson number 1, which I think is the most likely lesson, is that Miami's the worst team in football. Or conversely, lesson number 2, don't ever lay big points on the road, no matter who it is. We'll find out this week, indeed, if that is the case. But we're in the same category here. Is it just? I don't see how Miami puts up a huge fight there. When Fitzpatrick was doing what he did last year with Tampa, there was Mike Evans and some good tight ends and Godwins and receivers and a decent offensive line.
It's garbage, dude. You got Preston Williams is there. I mean, there's nothing there with Miami. And I'm sorry, but Kenyon Drake, Kalen Ballage out of that backfield. That's fine, but who's blocking for them?
No, they have no left tackle, no right tackle, no pass rush. Of course, I live in South Florida, so I know some of the stats, but their entire defense career 5 sacks. Think about that. Their career, not one guy with 5 sacks. Their entire defense has a career 5 sacks. So, look, strange things can happen. It's the NFL, and hopefully those of you who are watching this realize that. Let's say, for example, you have a bankroll. I don't know what people's bankrolls are these days, but let's just say your bankroll for the whole season is $1,000. Let's just say that you decided to throw $1,000. You live in New Jersey or West Virginia or Las Vegas in the legal places. Let's say you took $1,000 and you put it in one of the online sites. You should not be going 500 on this game and using 50% of your bankroll. There's no certainty at all. And as we've seen this in the past. No one's wishing for this. Lamar Jackson is my quarterback in one of my leagues. No one's wishing for Lamar Jackson in the second quarter to get hurt and the game to completely change. Also, keep in mind you can do live wagering if that did change. And if you did bet something on the Ravens and you wanted a hedge, you could go back with Miami and live wagering. But but this is the contest we're talking about here. We have to pick 5 games in the contest. Is the Ravens one of the better games that we like? Absolutely. It's probably in our top 2 or top 3. But you should never use 50% of your bankroll on any game. The most it should ever be, especially in a week 1 situation, is somewhere around 5%, 10% the most. And if you go 10%, you're the kind of person that has the ability to reload that account just in case you lose.
There you go. All right. So Ravens are in there, locked in. Last game here that we picked, we went with the Colts. Look at that. You want to talk about a team that I think everybody is overreacting to right now. The Andrew Luck news is terrible. And yes, Andrew Luck is a fantastic quarterback. Is he better than Jacoby Brissett? 100% he's better than Jacoby Brissett. But there's a lot that goes into this game for me. Number one, I think Jacoby Brissett is actually an underrated quarterback. He's a mobile quarterback. He still has his weaponry in T.Y. Hilton, Eric Ebron, Devin Funchess, Paris Campbell. He's got a backfield of Nyheim Hines and Marlon Mack. He's got the weaponry that he's been working with for the past 2 seasons anyway. You know, the difference between the Colts now versus the Colts in 2017 was that in 2017, Chuck Pagano was like, well, I'm going to get Luck back in a couple of weeks, so I'm not going to reinvent the wheel. Frank Reich is now turning things around, and he's dealing with it all for Jacoby Brissett. I like his mobility. I like the infusion of RPOs that we're going to see a lot more of here in this one. And they're 6.5-point road dogs to the Chargers, who I don't think a lot of people realize the loss that the Chargers have taken as far as defense goes between injuries and free agency, that all of a sudden, their front seven is good, not great. And now their secondary is trash, and it's gotten worse because of the injuries there. And how about this? They just also lost their kicker. Did you see that one there, Craig? Mike Badgley.
You know what? I was wondering why somebody brought that up to me this morning. I'm like, what are you talking about? Badgley's good. He's out too? I didn't even know that. Who's their kicker now?
Listen, I have 32 fantasy football teams, and Mike Badgley was on 30 of them. So I just basically spent my entire afternoon just clicking and putting in other kickers there.
That skipped by me. So who's the kicker?
They don't have one yet. They're still looking. They're still trying to sign somebody. Who do they have in camp? Nobody in camp right now. That's it.
Oh, that's good news for one of these teams I'm playing against here.
Oh, baby.
Little juicy. So for my handicap in this game is the Chargers historically, and by historically, let's not go back to Dan Fouts, but historically, let's say in the last 5 or 10 years, they've been a great team when they're an underdog, and they've been a horrible covering team when they're a favorite. And that goes back to LaDainian Tomlinson too, and Turner. When you think the Chargers are supposed to be good, they disappoint you. And they're really good at covering. They really don't ever have a home field advantage. They're playing in that small soccer stadium.
Yeah.
Their offensive line isn't great. You mentioned the injuries to Derwin James. At running back, obviously, they're not there. I don't think they deserve to be a 7-point favorite over anyone. My handicap is more against the Chargers, who were one of the worst teams in football last year, covering as a favorite. So certainly I think the Chargers will win this game. But I do think that it's a 1-point game or a 2 or a 3. And man, yeah, having any kind of subpar kicker going against arguably the best kicker of all time, for me, is a distinct advantage when covering the spread. Not to win, but when covering the spread. Yeah, of course, Cody Parkey missed those field goals with the Bears. I get it. But that's wins and losses. We're talking about covering here. And in a situation where, hypothetically, the Chargers are up 24-20, with 2 minutes to go, and the kicker lines up, misses the field goal, that's covering, especially if the Colts don't come down and score and the game is over. So this will probably be my favorite pick of the week with the Colts.
All right, beautiful. So there you go, guys. So that's our golden nugget here. It's Army, Missouri, UCLA, Florida State, Florida International, Ravens, and Colts. Now let's move over to the Westgate Super Contest, where we did the Ravens and the Colts again, and the spreads are actually the same.
Right, so, and by the way, let's also let people know that if the spreads are similar or the same, I think that Howard and I are probably of the opinion that we'll probably use the same NFL picks if they're exactly the same and we really like them a lot. Remember, we could have used the 3 other picks from the Super Contest and thrown some of them into the Golden Nugget, but we couldn't really go beyond 3 really good picks this week. So for full transparency, we're using the Colts again. We're going to use the Ravens again, but let's kind of go through the thought process as to how we picked our other 3 picks. And before you make fun of us, again, go back and look at our record from last year in the Super Contest and look at other people who do live streams and participate in these sort of things. We're at the top of people that do this. We had a great year last year. Now, we could fall flat this year. Who knows? But for our first year, we did real well. Colts are in the house. Ravens are in the house. Now let's get to our other 3.
All right. Well, do you want to start with the fun stuff or you want to start with the easy stuff? Let's start with the easy stuff here. Come on.
We'll go in order, I guess, in kind of how we like them, I suppose. I mean, that's our strength of confidence is at least gives people an idea as to what we were thinking.
Oh, well, right? If that's the case, then I'm going to have to start then with the Jaguars because I'm actually as confident as you are in this pick, just in the sense of this is what we do. This is how we roll. We roll with the book. We don't roll with the public.
Right. It's a contrarian pick for sure.
Yeah. And when you look at, we talked about this on Tuesday's live stream. When you look at the Chiefs and the Chiefs in the Super Contest, only a 3.5-point favorite. They were what? They were a 4-point favorite when we saw them on Tuesday. When the Westgate Super Contest put the line out, it's now Chiefs by 3.5. It's a weird line when you're talking about Mahomes, the reigning MVP. You're talking about Tyreek Hill, who just got a 3-year, $54 million extension, okay, and a get-out-of-jail-free card. You talk about Travis Kelce, arguably the best tight end in the game. Andy Reid. They just added LaShawn McCoy to their backfield. I mean, you're looking at this team, and you're thinking, how could this team lose? So then why are they only a 3.5-point favorite over the Jags? It's not just about home field advantage here for Jacksonville. I think the Jags are going to put Jalen Ramsey on Tyreek Hill and neutralize him. I think that they're going to run heavy with Leonard Fournette. And I think that Nick Foles there with Dede Westbrook and Keelan Cole and Marquise Lee returned to full practice today. While the public's going to be all over in the Chiefs, I'm taking the Jags here, and you and I both agree on this one.
Yeah, it's not so much even about the teams as it is about the line. And we talk about this sometimes, is that if Kansas City was 6 or 7 point favorites, I'd feel really good about Kansas City, but it feels like we're being dragged to take the public pick here with the Chiefs. Jacksonville is at full strength. There's no injuries involved. Of course, Bortles is not there anymore, not giving the ball away anymore. And who's to say that Nick Foles will even have a great game? I can't even say that. But again, another indication of this game, too, is that Jacksonville's offense, obviously, last year, the year before, left a lot to be desired. The total in this game is 51 points. I mean, you would have to assume that is telling you that Jacksonville, in a 3-point spread, is going to score like half of those points. I mean, that's what it's supposed to be. So there's a lot of indicators to me that are pointing toward Jacksonville. And look, it is the NFL. Chiefs could come out and win 41-0. They certainly can. But the Jaguars are not America's team. They're not one of those teams that people like. When you hear their name, you're just kind of like, ugh, like Tennessee gives you that too. Like, ugh, do I really want to take Tennessee? It just seems it's a wacky, weird line. And sometimes you got to go with the ugly pick that you don't think has any chance. And I think that's what this really is pointing toward this week. Kansas City certainly could win. They could still win by 3 and we win this. So I feel like taking the home dog.
Also, I like Josh Lambo as the kicker for the Jaguars this year. I think he's a rock solid guy. They got rid of Jason Myers, who was definitely struggling last season to make those clutch kicks, those late kicks. So I like the extra half point there. Also, that definitely tickles my fancy. So we're taking the Jaguars as our third choice there. After that, we're going a little ugly as well here. Lions -3 against the Cardinals. Now, it's the Lions as a road favorite, but, I mean, listen, you love the way the Lions start on a regular basis. I don't think you're into the whole Cliff Kingsbury and the air raid offense of Arizona. Talk to me here. Detroit.
Yeah, and again, a line that you would look at it and wonder to yourself, why is Arizona not favored at home in this game? And I think that kind of tells you what at least Las Vegas feels about Arizona very early on. First career start for Kyler Murray, who has not looked good at all in the preseason, one of the few quarterbacks that played in the preseason. and didn't look very good. He was able to find, I believe, their fifth wide receiver, Keyshawn Johnson. He seems to have a good thing going with that guy, but he's not their first receiver, their second receiver or third receiver. It's not that I really love the Lions here, but they do have the veteran quarterback there. They do have a running back who had a lot of success last year, 2 wide receivers that had a lot of success also, and provided that their cornerbacks and Slay and those guys do a good job, I really think that the Lions end up winning this game, and then we will fade the bleep out of them the next week, and we will go right against Detroit the following week because I will not buy this win at Arizona. The reality for the Cardinals is that, and we talked about this on our totals live stream, Arizona winning 5 or 6 games is not a miracle. They would have a party for you to double your wins or win 3 times your wins in the NFL. They would love that. That would be phenomenal. I just don't have confidence. I think Arizona is going to be a good covering second half team once they kind of get their legs under them a little bit, but I just don't like them at all going into this game. And it'll be Fade City, of course, against Detroit. Go back and look historically, last few years of Detroit. They start off 3-1, 4-1, 4-2. Oh, they could be good, and then they just fall apart. So I like the Lions in this game, and maybe we end up getting a push out of it. I'm not sure. And again, this is from a confidence standpoint, our 4th out of 5 games, just to be clear.
Yeah, well, another thing that also that you didn't mention there. Arizona, their best offensive weapon is David Johnson. They're going to use him heavily in the passing game. I like the speed of the outside linebackers for the Detroit Lions, and I love Damon Harrison right there in the middle to handle the work between the tackles. So I think the improved run defense, and you saw that last year when Detroit did pick up Harrison in a trade, right, and just how well that run defense did. So I kind of dig on that a lot. And then there, like you said, Darius Slay leading that secondary there. So I'm in on that pick. I like that pick. And yeah, like you said,
and then we had to fight for the last pick because we went through a lot of the games. Just so you guys know, like we considered taking Seattle. They were big favorites over Cincinnati. And then we both yelled at each other and said we never lay a lot of points in the NFL. We're never going to do that. And then we looked at Philadelphia against Washington, and we said the same thing, laying big points. It's the NFL. There's 11 teams on offense and 11 teams on defense. And honestly, with the exception of a couple of guys, they were more or less the same. What happens if Wentz gets sacked and fumbles, and then Washington picks up the ball, runs for a touchdown? Now we gotta lay 17 points in that game. It's just laying big points in the NFL in this day and age isn't wise. So we went away from there. We looked at the Monday night games. I think the Saints are good, but they're horrible 1-9 against the spread in the last 5 years in their first 2 games. The Saints, who would have thought that?
Right. Well, I wasn't really looking at that because I know you and I don't see eye to eye on Houston as well. And then when you told me 1-9 against the spread early on, I think the big game and the real one that we were watching was the Denver Raider game. It's in Oakland. It started off as a pick'em. And it's a pick'em in the Super Contest here.
Yeah, the Raiders when the line came out were 1.5 point favorites. Mm-hmm. It went down to a pick'em. Today Denver was, I think when I emailed you, would I put a 1.5 or 2.5? Denver was
a 2.5.
2.5 point favorite.
And then the Antonio Brown news broke.
Right, that came out, and then it went down to 1, and that's where it stands. The current line is where it stands right now. Is Denver as a favorite. I still think Denver's going to be a favorite going into Monday night, but in the Super Contest, it is a pick'em. And so the Raiders are just not a consideration for me in this one. It would just be about Denver. And then, kind of thinking it through here a little bit, it's just, I mean, how much better can the Broncos be than they were last year? Their personnel, they have a more steady quarterback, but I don't know that they have a great quarterback. And look, the crowd could be a factor Monday night. It's always a cool place to play in Oakland, and it could be a disaster. I mean, who really knows? And it's more of a drama thing than anything else. So we just inevitably decided to stay away from there. And then the rest of the games that you guys can see on the board, you could just go look at any website. Were kind of no plays for us. So in the end, we decided we are going to lay some points finally in one of these games, but it's going to be with Dallas in the final one. Dallas -7. A lot of good vibes going on with the Cowboys. They've extended Elliott. They may extend Prescott. The Giants are obviously a team that's not going to be very good. They have one dynamic offensive weapon that we'll have to worry about in this game. If Dallas's defense is worth their salt, all they will do is just focus on Barkley. And if they do that, I don't think the Giants have a chance in this game. If we do lose this game, it is going to be because Barkley does something that he shouldn't have done. It's not easy in the NFL to really figure those sort of things out. But to me, Howard, I don't know how you see it, but for me, Ingram could be a factor. He could catch 8 balls for 90 yards. He's not winning the game for the Giants, and their receivers are not great. Their defense is not great either, the Giants, too. So divisional game does scare me a little bit, but we'll take Dallas -7. And again, the 5th confidence pick out of the 5.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I have nothing really to add to that other than the fact I don't. I mean, listen,
we needed a 5th pick.
We needed a 5th pick. You've got Ezekiel Elliott back with 20 touches, 25 touches. Even if Dallas jumps up, let's say Dallas jumps up to a 21-3 lead, in the first half, and then come in the second half, are they going to put, maybe take their foot off the gas a little bit? They could with Zeke, depending on how much they work him in the first half. You still have Tony Pollard there. It's still a better team overall. The Giant defense isn't good. And if we're supposed to have confidence in Leighton Vander Esch, Sean Lee, DeMarcus Lawrence, everything that the Dallas Cowboys have put together for their defense, then this says that they should be winning this game. It is in Dallas. It is the first game for them. Jerry Jones isn't gonna,
Yeah,
I feel like we have to do it.
Yeah, the last time these two teams played, it was close. Dallas took a big lead, and the Giants came back and made it close. It was 36-35. But beyond that, when these teams have matched up, Dallas, this is one of the teams that Dallas has dominated in the same division. They've had their problems for some reason with the Redskins. I can't figure that one out. And they've had their issues with Philly, too. But it seems like, for whatever reason, the Cowboys have done a good job against the Giants. So maybe that continues, and that closes out our 5 picks here in the Super Contest and 7 picks in the Golden Nugget. And then Tuesday we'll grade them out. We'll see how we do.
Let's get some, baby. Let's do it. That's going to do it for us here at the Wager Alarm live stream. Again, go to wageralarm.com tomorrow. Once I have visual confirmation of our tickets, I will post those pictures up there with the picks and the spreads so that you can follow along. I want to say a big thank you to Matt Sells, our producer for today. For Craig Mish, I'm Howard Bender. Best of luck to you in your games this weekend. We'll catch you next time.